Depending which side of the frost line you woke up on, you found past the pumpkin's glow, where stories arrive unmarked, neighbors go unmissed, and no one lights a porch lamp unless they're expecting something. Tonight's collection comes from the living and the nearly not. A woman who never leaves her window. A man who waters his lawn with malice. A fence stitched with something far older than thread. And a freezer waiting patiently to be picked up. Welcome back to the dark.
She Watches Me Watch Her. Submitted by Travis H. I moved into the duplex the second week of October. The neighborhood was decent, quiet, not fancy. One-story homes with solar lights and American flags faded to pink. It suited me fine. I work third shift, so I'd roll in around 2:30 a.m. And every night, my neighbor's light was on. Unit B, the woman next door. Always in the same spot by her window, dim yellow lamp. She looked elegant, in an old school way. Shoulder-length hair, turtlenecks. Never saw her leave, never saw company. Always awake when I got home. Eventually, it became routine. I'd look up, we'd lock eyes for a second. I waved once, she didn't respond. I started to linger longer, pretending to check my phone, wondering if she'd move or wave. She never did. Then one night, I pulled into the driveway and saw her outside, standing barefoot in her backyard. Pale blue turtleneck, arms at her sides, facing the woods. She didn't move. I got out, and the motion light snapped on. She turned sharply, locking eyes with me, then stepped away and disappeared behind the fence. I knocked on the door the next day. She opened it up just a crack, stared at me, and said, "You need to leave me alone. I don't know who you are. Stop watching me." That week, I started noticing differences. Thermostat kept changing. Lights on when I got home. I started to feel watched even inside my apartment. I even went as far as installing cameras. One night, I got a motion alert detection sent to my phone. But when I checked the footage, it was corrupted. Black screen, no audio. I started checking the perimeter of my property every morning. That's when I noticed a patch of dirt just outside my side of the duplex. One spot that caught light differently, like it had been touched. When I dug just a few inches beneath it, I found a small, black, what looked like to be a signal jammer, buried, hidden under dry leaves and loose brush, made to look like it was untouched ground. I took it to the police. They logged it, said they'd investigate. But a week later, when I called to follow up, they claimed no such device was turned in. No report on file. I told my friend Sam about it. He said she'd mentioned me, said she was concerned, said I might be watching her, that I was unstable. He started seeing her after that. They actually went on a date. He said she was charming, that I might have misunderstood her, quote unquote. I tried warning him, told him things weren't right, but he brushed it off. Their relationship picked up fast. She'd drop by his job, bring him lunch. They started spending nights together. And to top it off, the weird things continued, but only when he wasn't around. So I set up better cameras, redundant power, motion triggers, off-site backups. For 2 nights, nothing. Third night, alert triggered, camera 2, living room. I opened the app, saw stuttering feet, glitched, then black. When I got home, everything looked untouched, but the footage, gone. Not corrupted, deleted. I walked the perimeter again, found another jammer. But this one was placed further from the house, off to the side, buried just beneath the topsoil under dead overbrush. Meant to look like part of the yard. I only spotted it because of the way that the late sun hit the angle of the ground. That's when I realized she knew exactly where my cameras were. And she knew exactly when Sam wouldn't be home. Now, 2 nights later, I saw her standing in her window again like always. Except this time, she waved first. I went back to the police. Footage, jammer, timeline, my account. They said I was unstable, that none of the files were recoverable, that the device had somehow gone missing again. Sam stopped returning calls. His truck started spending nights at her place. Then one day, he was gone. His job said he hadn't shown up. No report was ever filed. His parents thought he ran off. But I know what I saw. I saw her reading my mail, and I still see her. through the window, every night.
There's a thin line between watching and being watched. But there's another kind of neighbor. The one who changes your routine, not by presence, but by poison. Our next tale is about someone who never touched a thing and still left scars.
The Man Who Kept Bleaching His Yard, submitted by Alina D. I moved into the house on Bramble Street 6 months after the divorce. It was all I could afford, run-down place with a dead yard, no insulation and peeling paint, but it was close to my daughter's school, and the court had ruled shared custody. So, it was enough. The neighbor on the left was normal. Young couple, friendly. The one on the right was him. Tall, pale, always wearing white. He had this hunched way of standing, like he was never fully awake, and every morning, without fail, he bleached his lawn. I don't mean some eco-friendly weed killer. I mean literal bleach. Plastic jugs of it. 5-gallon tubs. Sprayer packs. I saw him dump it straight into the grass, and then stand there and watch the soil foam. Why does he make the ground all white? I don't know, I told her. Some people just have weird habits. She said the yard smelled like a pool at school, but stronger. She didn't like walking past it. A few weeks in, I started noticing rashes on my arms. I thought it was the stress, or detergent, or maybe even bed bugs. Turned out, my daughter had them too. Pale welts in the back of her legs. We went to urgent care. They said it looked like a chemical irritation. I went over and knocked on his door. No answer. I left a note. 2 days later, it was back in my mailbox, untouched. That night, I caught him spraying again. This time, he was doing it along the fence line. My fence. When he saw me, he didn't stop. Just nodded slow, like it was a greeting, and went right back to spraying. I called the city. They said unless runoff entered my property or drainage system, they couldn't intervene. He said the fence was on the property line legally neutral. That weekend, my daughter told me something that made my stomach turn. She said he talks to her. I asked where. She said through the fence. When she's outside playing, he whispers. I kept her inside after that. A week later, I caught her pouring something into my coffee. She looked scared when I asked her what it was. She said it was a magic potion to help me be less sad. She said the man gave it to her in a dropper bottle and said it would make everything better, that I'd stop being mad at Dad, that we'd all live together again if I took enough. I nearly threw up. I took the bottle and brought it to the police. They ran it. Trace amounts of ammonium compounds, sodium hypochlorite, bleach and cleaning agents, but diluted. The officer said the concentration wasn't lethal, but consistent exposure could do damage. They searched his home, found dozens of bottles, books on psychological suggestion, photos of children's birthday parties, none of which were his, and a stack of letters, some with my name, some with my daughter's. They arrested him. We moved. Same city court wouldn't allow us to go far, but far enough to feel new. My rashes faded after a month. My daughter doesn't talk about him anymore. Sometimes I hear her mutter in her sleep, but she never remembers what she says.
That yard was sterile, controlled, but not everything dangerous reeks of bleach. Some things come threaded and stitched into you slowly.
The Needle in the Fence, submitted by Melina. The first needle was facing the wrong way. That's what I remember most. It wasn't that there was a sewing needle jammed into the chain link fence between my yard and hers. People drop weird things. Wind carries trash. But this one was sticking out toward my side, threaded, red, like a little metallic accusation. I pulled it out, tossed it. Didn't think much of it. 3 days later, 2 more. Same spot, and another. Further down by the gate, both threaded. One red again, the other black. The thread was damp, probably sprinklers. At least that's what I told myself. I asked her once. She was outside trimming her rose bushes with gloves that looked 2 sizes too big. I waved. She waved back. I said, "Hey, do you sew outside or something?" She smiled. "Not unless I'm asked to." That was it. The one on my dog's collar is when it stopped being funny. Max, my disaster of a golden retriever, came inside whining. Didn't want to eat. kept pacing the fence. I wondered if it was a raccoon or a snake or that dead-eyed stray cat, but when I went to unclip his collar, something pricked my finger. I flipped the collar over and found a needle tucked under the strap, threaded with white, pulled through one of the holes like it had been stitched into place. 2 days later, I opened my mailbox. Junk mail, utility bill, and all routine at this point, another needle, pressed flat against a flyer for gutter cleaning. No thread this time, just the metal, bent slightly, like someone started twisting it into something else. I then installed a camera, simple, smart, motion-activated, night vision, alerts to my phone. It caught everything just fine. Birds, cars, some poor kid eating pavement off of a scooter. But every time it aimed towards the fence, the image dimmed. Not glitched, not corrupted, just darker somehow. Like the sun dipped early, or the lens was fogged. At the edges of the shadow, when I slowed the footage, movement. Not her, not a person, just something. Like the light itself was being peeled away. I didn't confront her, but she knew. She came to my porch at dusk, didn't knock, just left something. I opened the door and found a bundle of sage wrapped in red string. There was a note, one line, no name. It's better if you don't resist. That week, my arm started acting up. Little twitches, then pressure, then a bruise, round, blotchy, no center. It felt like something was pressing out from under it. I iced it, took Tylenol, didn't help. I pressed it one night and felt something shift. And that's when I saw it, a glint under the skin. I used tweezers. I know how that sounds, but I couldn't stop myself. I pulled, and out slid a sewing needle, whole, unbent, threaded with red. No blood, no scar, just smooth, healed skin. I took everything to the police. The soil near the fence, the photos, the camera footage, the mailbox needle, the one from Max's collar. They opened up an investigation. Environmental testing showed strange residue in the dirt. They searched her property, found bundles of thread, bent needles, a corkboard labeled with symbols, jars of things. One had my name written on the lid. She was arrested. I filed for a protective order. She made bail. Moved 3 towns over. I haven't found a needle since, but sometimes when I'm weeding my gate, I get that same pressure in my arm. Just a silent, gentle reminder.
Sometimes the rituals are old. The thread is red. Other times, the horror is just heavy, white, and sealed with duct tape. Be careful who you help. You might be lifting something that was never meant to be moved.
He asked me to help move a freezer. Submitted by Carson. I didn't know his name. 2 doors down, always out in the yard at odd hours. Not friendly, not hostile, just present. Quiet. He kept to himself, but not in the usual, just minding my own business way. More like someone waiting, watching. His yard was always perfect. Lawn trimmed to exact height, edges squared, hedges sculpted, like he adhered to the measure twice and cut once even with his lawn. He didn't wave when he drove by. He just glanced, then kept walking. So when he stepped out of his garage, then flagged me down one evening, I was surprised. "Hey," he said, "can you help me move something? Freezer. Old. Heavy." His voice was flat, polite but emotionless, like asking me to hold a door open. I almost said no, but then the sun was still up, and old habits die hard. I said sure, and followed him up the drive. It was a chest freezer, white, dented, old, already halfway out of the garage. A line of duct tape sealed the lid. "Need to get it back to the alley," he said. "Someone's picking it up." I grabbed the back end, we tipped and lifted. That's when the smell hit me. Not strong, not right either. It was the kind of smell you only get when something's thawed too long, like meat that should have stayed frozen but didn't. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah, just the weight." We didn't talk as we moved it to the alley. He didn't explain anything and I didn't ask. We got there, he adjusted the tape a bit. Didn't thank me, just crouched beside it like he was checking his work. I turned and left. Didn't look back. Next morning, the freezer was gone. So was the old woman who lived across the street, Mrs. Calder. Fed birds, sat on her porch every evening with crossword puzzles and lemon water. Just gone. No ambulance, no notice, No family visits, just a fresh real estate sign and an empty bird feeder still swinging in the wind. I told myself it was nothing, just a coincidence. That was until I realized I hadn't seen her porch light on in over a week, until I saw the mail still sitting in her mailbox, until I started remembering the smell. A week later, her house went up for sale. No estate sale, no boxes, no moving truck, just a coat of fresh paint and a new lock on the door. And the man 2 doors down, still trimming the hedges, still sweeping the driveway, still doing everything exactly the same way he always had.
That's the trouble with living near the glow. The jack-o'-lantern promises safety, but the moment you look past it, your eyes begin to adjust. Join us next week to peer past the pumpkin's glow.